It's now my great pleasure to welcome my colleague to the stage, Nicole Bolt. Nicole's our Acting Director of Workforce Development. She is driving clean energy workforce strategies and fostering diversity within the clean energy workforce. She's got over 15 years in government, previously led Victoria's Clean Economy Workforce Skills Initiative, and she's going to introduce her and chair our Champions for Change panel, which I think will be really great. So please welcome Nicole.
Thanks very much, Tracy. So it's wonderful to see you all here today, and to those of you who are joining via live stream, so I'm not quite sure where to wave, but hello. We've spotted some school children in the venue, so I'm going to give them a little bit of time to come over to join, because part of what we're going to do right now is for them. So school kids, if you can hear me, come over to the corner, please. So I have the fun job today of facilitating this morning's session, which is about champions of change. And I can tell you that not only do we have a great bunch of Career for Net Zero champions with us today who have come along to share stories about their educational and career pathways and to talk about their specific roles, but I have a feeling we might have one or two superheroes on the panel as well. And I say this because I think, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about this, there are some people that can scale heights of 100, 200, 300 metres, just like Spider-Man. I'm hopeful the work gear is more appropriate, but we'll find out. And one of the main reasons that we're hosting today, the whole event, is so we can raise awareness about the job and career opportunities that Australia's clean economy transformation is giving people. So we hope today creates interest, some optimism for the future, and a sense of what is possible. Today's session on Champions of Change provides a taster of what, for you, of the diverse roles that exist in the various pathways into these roles. And importantly, it's an opportunity for you to be able to start seeing yourself as a champion of change and realising that you can take your passions, your skills, your experience to create your own pathway into a career in the clean economy. There are loads of jobs and we need people in them, now and into the future. So let's get started with introducing our panel. So I'll introduce you one by one, and if you just come up as I'm introducing you, that'd be great, please. So firstly, we've got Nathan Champney. So Nathan is a travelling turbine technician team lead, superhero, at Stanwell Asset Maintenance Company. With over 13 years in heavy industry, he specialises in mechanical maintenance and leads a team focused on renewable energy services. Welcome, Nathan. Liesl Dingley is a passionate and driven environmental consultant and the founder and managing director of Dynamic Environmental Services. She has provided environmental expertise to some of the largest mining and renewable energy projects in Queensland. Welcome to the stage, Liesl. Ryan Ellis is a site technician at Flyers Creek Wind Farm with Iberdrola Australia. With 15 years of experience across various sectors, Ryan transitioned to renewables to combat climate change and reduce emissions. Thank you, Ryan. Dan Warren is the manager of Transformers and Reactive Plant at Energy Queensland, with nearly 20 years of experience in the power industry, specialising in substation design, network planning and asset management. Thanks very much, Dan. And last but not least, Lahiro Wimala-Surya leads the Future Energy Division's retail product and platforms at CS Energy, focusing on renewable energy through smart tech. With a background in mechanical engineering, he brings vast expertise in energy policy and project management. Welcome to all of you, and thank you very much for participating today. So I'm going to start in reverse order, and we're going to do just to get things rolling, a 30-second elevator pitch for all of you of why people should consider a career in the clean economy, and perhaps more specifically in the area that you work. Lahiru, go.
Thanks, Nicole. My background is mechanical engineering, but why I would recommend it is it's very diverse. Obviously, it's the future there's a lot of the future workforces in this sector. So obviously the jobs, the salaries are there. But outside of that, it's for me personally, it was a bit of a passion where I went from traditional building service engineering into renewable energy engineering or related engineering. But there's an impact piece to that decision as well, and whether that's for everyone or not. I think there's a massive sector here for now and into the future, as the team at Clean Energy Council has said. So there's the impact, there's the jobs, there's the future, and leaving, Uncle Charlie was saying, leaving that impact for future generations to come. Again, personally for me, that is a big piece of it.
Thanks for hearing.
Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Great to be here. Look, energy is a job for life. It's an incredible career to get into. Like, even this morning, if you had a cup of tea, hot Milo, or whatever kids are drinking these days, like, that little bit of energy has to come from somewhere. And it's just an incredible area to work in. It's definitely not boring. It's very diverse. Ticks every box. It's technical. It's problem solving. It's people oriented. It's fantastic. So definitely consider a career in energy and clean energy for sure.
Definitely agree with the last two speakers. I think further to that, it's a real emerging industry in Australia, in the world. We are leading the change. We'll see so much policy change. We'll see so much change in how it's done. And just to be a part of that is really incredible. In the coal-fired power industry, mining industry, it's very established. We know what we're doing. But in this industry, we're just going to see so much change.
So Nathan Champney, travelling tech for Samco, which is a subsidiary company of Stanwell. Like Dan said, energy industry is a job for life. I was blown away when I first started in the energy industry about what it takes to turn a light switch on. But to be able to do that now and address environmental challenges at the same time makes me a whole lot more prouder. And it's a sustainable industry and it's the future. There's going to be a time where renewable energy is just energy. So, get involved.
Thank you.
Hi. I think just a new, fast-growing industry. It's exciting. Just something different than mining. And just not working in a mill, working out on a farm in fresh air, I think is the appealing part. That's the big drivers.
Thanks very much for that. So I don't know about you in the audience, but hearing you talk with the comments around being part of something that has a sort of higher purpose and that we're here for the long haul certainly makes me feel validated, because one of the themes that we want to try and get across is that sense of people with particular skills and experience and passion can be working in another sector, in another area, and they can use those drivers to transfer across into the clean economy. So thank you very much. I'm already sold, but I was sold again. So thanks. So, Dan, we've got a series of questions. We're also just going to try and be really conversational. There is the opportunity for questions at the end. I understand that through the live Q&A with the app or on the QR code of your registration tag, you can upload questions. And we'll see how we go at the end for that. But for now, we're just going to start off with some questions and get the conversation going. And Dan, I think I'm going to start with you, if that's okay. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I have a 9-year-old son, and when I see the title Manager of Transformers and Reactive Plant, I only get to Transformers and then my mind goes to something else. And so I'm so keen to hear what a typical day looks like for you and what you do. Because you manage Transformers, right? So that's the coolest job in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting job title. For my team, we look after transformers and reactive plant within Queensland, within the whole Energy Queensland network. I don't even know if I'll try to attempt to describe what reactive plant is. I'd probably have to dive into a electrical engineering sort of theory lesson, so I'll spare you that now, but happy to talk about it afterwards. So I think the question was, what does a typical day look like in... I look after maintaining all the assets, and obviously the network is critical to clean energy because the electricity network connects everything together. We want to turn on our kettle in our homes, but that energy could ultimately be generated from a wind farm, down near Warwick or wherever. So the network's critical to bring everything together. Transformers are a critical part of the network to change voltage along the way. Like you can't boil your kettle at 330 kV or 500 kV unless you want to have a very serious safety incident. So we need to change voltage along the way, and that's what my assets do. Transformers. So a typical day could, hopefully nothing's broken over the weekend. Like if a transformer has a fault, that's incredibly stressful. You need to make sure there's spare transformers to replace the one that's failed. It's stressful, but also really exciting. Sometimes the best work happens under those moments when we all rally together to fix a critical component on the network. I'm sort of a team leader, so like a lot of people stuff day to day, working with my team, see what they're up to, working with field staff if they need direction or they need to talk to me about an issue out in the field. So it's very diverse, definitely not boring. I never get bored coming into work. It's always dynamic and it's really fun.
So out from behind the desk and not scrolling through unread emails. Or is there a little bit of that, just a little bit?
Does anyone not have emails as part of their job, or do we know how to get rid of them yet?
No,
we've got all this new technology, and it's always like this new technology is going to reduce the amount of emails, but I haven't found that's happened yet. So
Well, thank you for explaining what you do. Liesl, I'm interested to hear from you about your role and what a typical day looks like for you.
A typical day for me is very different every single day. My role has a great mix of sitting behind the desk and then getting out in the field. Hopefully I can swing it so that when the weather's bad I'm inside and when it's good I'm outside. Doesn't always work like that. So for example, yesterday I was on a wind farm undertaking some compliance inspections. Part of that is looking in rubbish bins. I do quite a lot of looking in rubbish bins, make sure that where we can segregate waste for recycling, that's happening, educating the workforce on which bin to put which thing in, endlessly. Then I went out and did some inspections where the public roads are being widened. Some trees have to come down. That's to enable the blades to come through when they travel through to that wind farm in a couple of months. I then met with the regulator, the Department of Environment, Science and Innovation, where we spoke about a site who's looking at ways to recycle more waste that's coming from renewable energy and some of those alternate ways of managing that waste, so taking timber waste and turning it into compost for sale, for application on your gardens. My day then also includes lots of emails and meetings, absolutely never ending. And then I got a great drive home as the sun set from the wind farm to come to Toowoomba for today.
Thanks very much, Liesl. Lahiru, can we perhaps hear from you before I get to the two of you down the end while I'm trying to deal with my fear of heights, right? Before I hear about your work days?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. My one, I'm in the customer and retail section of CS Energy. So we have the team who builds the big stuff. We have the teams at Callide and Kogan Creek who operate and maintain our thermal fleet. But what I'm really doing is enabling and building our future products. So when I say future products, that's things like demand response and virtual power plants and unlocking the value of consumer resources. So in the sites we have, solar systems on the roofs here. There's a massive, gigantic solar array on the rooftop car parks out here. And because we have worked with Uni SQ before, So solar, batteries, EV chargers, air conditioning systems, anything with power and load, which Dan was referring to, if we can unlock and orchestrate that load to match our generation portfolio, that is massive commercial value for us. So I am enabling through a newly built team to do the site visits, to work with the electricians and contractors to get the quotes, to get the pricing, to go through all the government processes that Nathan and Dan would know about, so procurement, legal, finance, independent reviews, etc. But then that value is unlocked, and then we can install some assets and infrastructure, and then plug it into essentially a virtual power plant. So my day-to-day is site visits. It is emails as well. I do have a tip. You can block out your calendar for site visits, then less influx of emails. But anyway. Site visits, working with a lot of contractors and suppliers. So we obviously target local-based companies, and so a lot of our suppliers and partners are from Queensland, and they're the ones who have the technologies and the actual hardware and potentially software as well. So email, site visits, a lot of IT conversations, which is quite foreign to me, being an engineer, but that's a part of the change and adapting to those new future environments. But that really is probably my day-to-day, week-to-week, a lot of conversations.
That's a lot for all of you so far. It's a lot. I'm determined to find the jobs that gets us out from... You all are moving around out from your desk, which is fantastic, and meeting people and solving problems, which is also a great thing to be able to do while you're on the job. Now, Nathan and Ryan, please tell me. You don't deal with emails. You just deal with climbing up towers that go to, 200, 300 metres?
I hope they don't get to 300 metres.
Okay, all right. Well, hang on. I gave you superpower status, so, like a superhero. So let's say 500.
I think the hub height of the new wind turbines are around the 150, 160 mark, which is still a long climb with the lifts out. So a typical day for me, with a little bit of background talk, is 3 years ago I was working for Stanwell Company at Toronto Power Station, and I was in the fuel plant there as a fitter, mechanical background. And Samco, which is like I mentioned before, a subsidiary 100% owned of Stanwell, had a pathways program called Development Pathways, and that aligns with the QEJP. Helping transition tradesmen and women from thermal backgrounds to renewable, giving them exposure. And I was lucky enough to be successful in that program. So the last 18 months, I've been working with a host company across Australia, travelling on a roster of 2 and 2. And the host company specialises in wind turbine gearbox repairs. It's been such an eye-opener. I went from being home every night to new roster, could wake up and fly to South Australia, Victoria, Western Australia, anywhere I was needed. Typical day for me is go to site, have your pre-start anywhere between 6 and 7 a.m. And once you've got your jobs for the day and you know your faults that you go out, you load up your gear, triple check, not double check, because you could be up to an hour away up a goat track to get to the turbine.
Wow.
So you don't want to forget anything.
No.
Or the boss will be onto you. Then we just team up, safety gear on straight up. We double check each other. Minimum of 2. You can never be alone. That's pretty crucial. Then we load up our parts, load up the hoist, and then we climb. Whether we send people up in the lift with the gear and the other person climbs the ladders, just depends.
How long does that take, climbing the ladders?
You can actually beat the lift. So,
that's impressive.
It's quicker too. It takes about, on like a 130-metre hub height, might take 6 to 7 minutes, depending on the person doing it. So it doesn't get easier, trust me.
Okay, all right. I was just thinking, it must be so fit.
So then we obviously work in a team. We use everything. You need your eyes, your ears, your smell. You use everything you can to diagnose the fault. And then we carry out the repairs, which could take up to hopefully no more than a day. Then it's just a reversal process where you just get the gear down using the hoist, climb down,
And the big thing for me at the moment was we can have that turbine back online if we repair it right within 5 minutes. So it's we can literally turn the key on, press start up. By the time you got your gear in your ute, it's making power straight away. So
incredible.
It's quite incredible, yeah.
I've got a couple of questions that I'd like to follow up before we get to you, Ryan, around the 2x2 model. So that's 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. 14 on, 14 off. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you travel around a lot. So I'm interested to hear from you around how you manage with your life outside of work, with the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and travelling around, how does that work for you?
Yeah, so I have quite the interesting one, and don't judge me, but I accepted the 2 on, 2 off roster a week after my wife told me she was pregnant. So, God bless her, she's an amazing woman. But I just said, just give me 2 years, and if it doesn't work out, I'll owe you back for 2 years. And we've made it work together. She's been brilliant. The 2 on, 2 off, it's all about, like Samco's all about lifestyle rosters. We never make our people work anything that they don't want to work. And I actually found I've had more quality time on the roster at home. I can wake up, drop the kids to school, have a coffee with them in the morning before we go to school. I can pick them up from school, go to netball, go to football, all that activity's on my 2 off because it's a genuine 2 off. If we want to go to the sunny coast or Brizzy, or we just got back from Tassie, and I also have been flying my family around with me sometimes as well. So that's a great inclusion, and it makes it all worthwhile in the end. So yeah, it's been great.
It's making me feel slightly envious because of the daily. Come on, can you just get your shoes on? Come on, I've got a meeting I have to go to.
That's what I was finding when I worked locally and was home every night. You get in the rut of being at work. You're there as early as you can. You've got a massive day. I've never been home on time. The kids have had dinner, and it's just it was good. The rosters really surprised me actually of how much quality time I spent at home.
That's really eye-opening, it's great to hear, because I think a lot of people can sort of hear that you're working for 2 weeks and there's no break and you're not with your family, but then to hear you describe what the 2 weeks off can be like and is fantastic to hear. Thank you.
And just to touch on that, I start my new role next week in Samco as the Renewable Works Superintendent. So
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So it worked out well. The 2 years.
Career pathways, everybody.
The 2 years seen as much as I can, absorbing everything like a sponge has definitely paid off.
Yeah, well done. That's fantastic.
Back to the email. I'm learning what emails are all about now, that's for sure.
We still haven't found that job with no emails. Ryan, my last hope. Thank you very much for that, Nathan. I am going to stay with you just for a little bit, Ryan. So keen to hear what your typical workday is and to describe what you do.
So my typical workday, obviously pre-start every morning, 7 o'clock start. So it's just site management, site maintenance, so just the balanced plant, transformers, reactive plant, the site as a whole, sort of just, see if there's anything tripped with the HV or any fault finding there, or with the substation, any fault finding there. Working with the farmers, with the landowners, that's a big part of our job, which I think is a massive part of the whole industry, is just making sure that we're keeping our landowners happy.
Can you describe or elaborate a little bit more on what that looks like with working in communities and with farmers?
Yeah, just keeping the lines of communication open. Yeah, just touching base with them, seeing if they have any issues, what issues they're having, and what we can do to, alleviate those issues or make it better. So we're there to work together for the life of the farm. So I think that's a massive part of it. And yeah, just managing subcontractors with works happening, HV switching if we need to isolate certain parts of the farm, sort of writing switching procedures, issuing HV access permits and the likes of that. Yeah, around those lines.
There is a consistent theme here, which, and I sort of mentioned this earlier on, but it's the solving problems, the getting up every day to see if something has happened overnight or if something is emerging that you need to know and understand. So when you describe what you do, it's just these rich days of working with people, identifying issues and problems and solving them. And let's not forget, this is keeping the lights on for us and the economy going, right? Because it's all about our energy generation. So thank you all very much for talking to us about what your days look like. Ryan, I am going to stay with you for a little bit longer because you said something really fantastic in your bio, which is that you transitioned to renewables to combat climate change and reduce emissions. So I've got a question here for all of you, but I'll start with Ryan. And it is what inspired you to pursue a career in the clean economy and how did you land your first role? I'd like to start with you just because your bio made that reference to combating climate change.
Might have called me out there a little bit. How did I get my start? I had a former workmate who was lucky enough to get a job in the industry and made the job aware to myself, and I just applied and had an interview and was lucky enough to get one of the roles, which is good. And I think there is definitely the factors of the renewable energy and the impact that has is definitely an appealing part of it, but it wasn't a primary reason. So I guess I just knew someone and who made a job aware was basically the.
And this is another really important point because it doesn't have to be just one reason, right? But also how you find out about jobs that are available, how you get into them. This is one of the critical points that we really do want to emphasise, particularly with renewable energy and the clean economy. Yes, there are some aspects to it that have been around for longer, but this is effectively a new industry. And while there are some really traditional pathways, if you want to be an electrician, you've got to do an apprenticeship. You want to be an engineer, got to get an engineering degree. But we're also at a phase of development where we need people to sort of think about the non-traditional ways into having a career in the clean economy. So having a mate who's got a job that you like the sound of, that is absolutely one way to do it.
Yeah, and I was in mining for 14, 15 years. It's time for a change, something new, something exciting. That was also appealing, and also I've got a young family, so the Monday to Friday sort of 7 till 3 hours and flexibility. I can drop off or I pick up most days. Sort of say those 12-hour days or end up being 13, 14-hour days with travel and sort of effectively not seeing your kids anyway. So that was definitely a big point for the change as well.
So the clean economy is family friendly. Thanks very much for that, Ryan. I do want to get back to the idea of the transferring from different sectors, because I know a few of you have worked for the mining industry. But before we do that, I'd like to hear from whoever else wants to grab the microphone and put their hand up around what inspired you to pursue a career in the clean economy and how did you land your first role?
So for myself, literally the grass was greener on the other side of the fence. So I was working in coal-fired power generation, and I would go up the stack and I could literally see a solar farm being built a couple of kilometres away, and thought that's something I really want to be involved in. I decided to leave my role in coal-fired power generation to hopefully get an opportunity in the renewables sector. I started my own business, a consultancy, and while I was still setting things up, I was approached via LinkedIn. So in terms of how to get a role, building your LinkedIn presence is really important. and I landed a role supporting a solar construction project, and it's just gone on from there. It's been fantastic.
Thanks, Liesl.
Probably less about what inspired me to get in, but more like ways to interact with the industry and workforce. LinkedIn is a massive one, but what I like, having presented at a lot of conferences over my last few years, with Clean Energy Council and others, what I noticed is these industry events are really good. Like I was up in Mackay 2 weeks ago, and I literally saw companies. There was Beast, GHD who's here, Glencore Mining, and there was a few mining companies that said they are literally here to scout and recruit. They're not like traditionally it used to be about technologies. It was like, what's the newest excavator? Like there was Hastings Gearing, there was massive excavators, dump trucks, mining equipment, generators, off-grid generators, etc. But it's transforming into more workforce related. So you have lots more sessions and talks about this stuff. And when you can go to these industry events, which a lot of them are free and accessible, obviously there's a piece around small businesses we noticed didn't have as much resources to allocate their staff to take off time off the tools and head there. But for the most part, we saw an interest, like a spike in interest to these conferences where they were talking about workforce and opportunities. And then you had the companies who were hiring, like us, like, we're all recruiting as well, but they were targeting these industry events to recruit and poach. So that was really interesting for me to see that transform over the years.
Thanks, Lahiru. Dan, you want to?
Yeah, so I don't know. I can talk about my background, but happy to talk about that later as well. But to inspire young people, all you need to do is get a job in the energy industry, and you will be working with clean energy. So it's that simple. So if you're interested in engineering, electrical engineering, going to power systems, you will end up working in clean energy. Like if you're interested in customer engagement, you can easily get into the clean energy. So we're tracking to 100% renewables, hopefully well before 2050. So that's the inspiration, just working energy, and you'll be working in clean energy. So it's really exciting.
I just want to pick up on something that you said, Lahiru, about the value of these sorts of opportunities and conferences where there's a focus on workforce and jobs. And it reminded me that at the Clean Energy Council we have a Women in Renewables program, and part of that program is offering tickets to conferences for young female graduates. And they get sponsored by a CUC member to attend one of our large events. And we've had people come out of that, so just turning up to a conference, being sponsored by a renewable energy company and landing a job afterwards. So, it's this is an example, I guess, of how, big things can happen just from turning up and finding out a little bit of information about, about the sector. So I want to move on to, and Dan, you've started this in talking to, people about how you can get started, what sort of things to think about. What advice, and this is open to all of you, so whoever grabs the microphone first, or is holding it now, but, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to do what you do? And so, there's a practical, specific kind of response to this around what education do you need, and that's clearly important. It's a highly skilled sector. We need professionals. We need trades. But also, it is the what else? How do you find out? Where do you go?
I'll be brutally honest. Like, I've had my heart set on roles throughout my career, and I've missed out. I've done my best. I've gone through the interview process, and I've been pipped at the post. But in my experience, that's always opened up new, amazing opportunities. Still within clean energy. So the best thing you can do as a young person is obviously, work hard, think about that degree that you think opens the most options for you after you graduate, and just, commit to your study, do a really good job, get good marks, build a network within the university environment. I came through Uni SQ. But then be open, like the job you think is your dream job, there'll be many other jobs that are similar, and you might find out in hindsight they're even more fun than that job you thought about. So definitely get your heart set on a particular role, but be prepared that there's other roles out there that are just as exciting and just as fun. And there's so many amazing jobs in the clean energy sector, and there's only becoming more and more. So yeah.
Looks like it's me.
It is.
Thanks, Dan.
Hot potato.
So I would absolutely encourage the building of your LinkedIn profile for sure. Completely agree that you have your heart set on a job, it doesn't work out, but there is always something better out there. Yeah, that's about all I've got for now. I'll think about it.
With the mechanical and electrical trade set, I think it's very important to do your research before you get into the industry. I think, I jumped on 6 months before I was even knew about my role coming up with the Development Pathways program. I was on YouTube, I was on the internet. Wasn't so much big on LinkedIn back then, I've got it now. But just anything I could, I would, if I knew anyone in renewables, I'd go pick their brain about roles and different types of industries within the renewables sector. And once you've got your research, I'd suggest, especially like trade backgrounds, get into your training assessors. There's not so much around Kingaroy, but like Toowoomba, Brisbane, Gold Coast. Get your basic certificates, working at heights, the stuff that will put you ahead. Like if there's a pool of 50 people going for the job, you want the stuff that's going to put you ahead of them. Give you the best shot, not saying it's guaranteed. And yeah, just once you're in, just be a sponge. I use that term so much. Just like Dan said, I've never thought I'd be in the role I'm in today, but I've always said yes, 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 as long as I've agreed to it, which is like that's why I'm here today. I was asked to come here, and I said yes, and who knows what this will lead to.
Thank you.
No, thank you. But just say yes and just be that sponge. The conversation, you'll be in conversations, especially as a young person, where you probably won't have the most input, but always listen. Listen to the people around you with that experience, and the opportunities will come.
We've got about 2 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we open it up for people who want to ask questions. I've got a whole bunch of questions that I want to keep on asking and talking about. And I just wanted to reflect on a couple of things that you said, Nathan. So it reminded me I was at Monash Tech School in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago at like a speed dating course. No, it wasn't a course. It was a speed dating session where I sat at a table and year 10s and 11 groups, 2 to 3, would rotate to different tables, and it was about the clean economy, and they'd ask a series of questions. And I remember being asked about my pathway into renewable energy, and I'm the wrong person to ask about pathways because my pathway to here has been up and down and left and right and stalled and gone really fast. But as I was sort of admitting that to them, and talking about a couple of mistakes that I've made when I was younger, and then how I sort of became really uncomfortable as an older person with a misalignment around my values and wanting to do something, and I could see younger people kind of breathe a sigh of relief around the idea that it isn't necessarily linear, and you might not get it right, but you keep going, particularly if you've got a passion and there is an area that is of interest to you. Before we open it up to people, I just want to check to see if there's anybody who hasn't spoken on that question who would really like to say something.
Thanks, Ben. I think one of the things about how to access the jobs, LinkedIn has been really good. I think sometimes LinkedIn might be better than Seek, applying for 1,000 jobs, which I have done. The other one was these events. I keep saying these events. As a young person, I was doing a presentation at Hydrogen Grand Prix with school kids in Gold Coast recently, and getting people comfortable and the touch and feel of this industry is really important. So school kids, high school, university, getting exposure and access to this, and then just building those soft skills. That's a massive thing we're seeing a transformation in. It's not just the hard skills. Yes, you need the tickets, you need the degrees for different various roles, but we're prioritising those soft skills around behaviour. Like, you can teach content, you can teach engineering, trades, you can't teach behaviour and attitude. The sponge analogy is great because we are I'm speaking for ourselves, but we target people with the right attitude and behaviour who are ready to sponge, whether it be from the trades, blue collar, or professional degree, white collar, and that can adapt to different opportunities and roles. Like, my role has the weirdest title, and no one knows what I do. My family doesn't know. But it's like a role that's evolving, and the team that I'm building is evolving, and we're kind of going, course correcting and going in the right direction. But school students, university students, TAFE Queensland does a lot of good stuff in this space as well, and getting exposure and then developing the soft skills that back up the hard skills. I think I recommend that. That's probably a big play.
That point about soft skills, I think the terminology might be changing over time. I'm not quite sure where we've landed on that one, but it does remind me that idea around being courageous and prepared to take risks and make mistakes, being determined, focused, persevere, leadership, being resourceful, all those sorts of things. So it's a really, really good point that we know that the workforce or employers are looking, obviously, for people with qualifications where it's required, but it is that part of how you behave and who you are, and those leadership skills are so important. So on that note,
can you hear me?
Oh, heard you now.
So I don't think an app question is has anybody managed to ask a question through the app?
Nothing's come through.
I think we'll just use the microphone.
Yeah.
So has anybody got a question? It's got to be someone. Come on.
Lizelle, this is for you. You said that when you left your old job and went towards your first job, like taking your step into, I think it was solar construction, you were saying. I just wanted to know what was, I guess, your biggest contribution in terms of environmental planning and managing within that first construction job.
Thanks for the question. When the renewables industry construction started, almost all the companies that were doing construction had come from overseas. So the companies were Spanish, Indian, all around the world. They'd come to Australia and were really not across Australian environmental legislation, and particularly Queensland environmental legislation. So there was many opportunities for me to assist them in all sorts of things. So I think for the first project, they particularly had an issue with weeds on site. They didn't even realise the plant was a weed. It just looked pretty. The community were very concerned about their lack of control of the weed. So to be able to educate them on how critical it was that they played their part as a landholder in the community and how much their work could impact their direct neighbours. That to me was the most important thing I did there. And I drive past that project and I see they're still controlling their weeds. So years on, it had an impact.
It's a great legacy. I love it. And I know the farmers particularly have real issue with, from a biosecurity point of view, about being on their farm and, the transference of weed species and, all sorts of things. So it's pretty important. Any other questions? Come on, we've got this tremendous panel here. You must have questions. I've got one. What do you reckon we can do to attract more women into the workforce? We know that it's male-dominated. All those critical injuries that are skill shortages are already in male-dominated areas. How are we going to get more women into the clean economy?
I think the biggest thing is finding the right people for that role and just making that role open to everyone to see. I'm seeing more and more women in our industry every single day. It's great. We're getting them to site. We're putting them through the same training that we're doing as techs, especially like our business team, admin team, and even electricians. There's electricians. We're seeing an influx of women in the electrical industry. So Yeah, I probably don't have the specific answer, but it's just getting everyone out there and just their inclusion in the team. A team full of men would probably have our heads down worrying about one thing, but it's interesting that Beck, our business team support, she has input as well. And we would never have thought of the way she thought of things, and we would be able to use her problem-solving ideas, I suppose. So, yeah, just making sure it's all open for them.
And Dan, you were saying something earlier when we were talking before this session about the graduate program that you were just recruiting for. Or,
yeah, absolutely. I think Energy Queensland's speaking a bit later today. I was privileged to go through our scholarship interviews recently, and I can honestly say the female applicants ran circles around the guys, just from my observation. Like, a lot of the guys, they were quite cruisy and had a little bit of expectation that this was a career for them. They're just sort of rocking up. But the young ladies were incredible, just really dedicated, really excited about the future. And I think diversity breeds diversity. Like, at the moment, in a lot of areas, we're starting off a low base, and there's not a lot of women in engineering and other sectors. But it's getting better, and as that gets better, more women will attract more women into the profession. I'm not the best person to do it, to be honest. Like, even my daughter, who's in year 12, I desperately want her to work in clean energy and engineering, but she doesn't want to do it because her dad does it. So I need someone like Liesl to talk to my daughter to attract her into the profession, because I struggle because I'm a man. So diversity breeds diversity, and Energy Queensland's doing an amazing job, which we'll talk a bit more about later.
Okay, thank you.
I might just one more thing. So we all have different pathways. There's gender, cultural diversity. Otherwise, there's pathways and there's questions and debates around whether they're effective or not, and whether that's exclusive or inclusive. But separate to that, one of the stories I heard from a team on our coal plant. So we have two massive coal plants. One of the teams there was saying we're doing a cultural training, which is great because you get diverse views from everybody. They were saying that it's like historically there were teams and team leaders and those hierarchies in sight that didn't enable the culture. So you push females or diverse people into an environment where it's not set up culturally from a hierarchical point of view, where the team leaders will accept language and behaviour, which is otherwise frowned upon in those environments. So this team was saying how they had shuffles and team leaders and hierarchy, which enabled that culture to come in and stay. So one thing is attraction, the other thing is retention. So that was really powerful, because at a coal plant, which is historical, has its views and hierarchies, is also transforming. And then they said that they saw their own team members within that team standing up for each other, and the female colleagues and the diverse colleagues from different cultures as well. That was really powerful for me, because there's shifts that need to happen internally to enable that environment to happen for a long term.
Yeah. The cultural change is important. I can see some heads nodding. I think there might be one final question, but I do want to hear from you, Lisa, to that point, please, and then we'll...
Yeah, just to wrap up the diversity and inclusion, it is the responsibility of the people who are the minority, like the females, to just get out there and get amongst it. I don't even realise that I'm in a room of men or a panel of men until I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. It's almost like we shouldn't even be talking about diversity and inclusion, because it should just be a thing. Like, we're just all there doing our job. That's it.
Hello. Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I've lived across Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and the big cities all my life. I'm now out in the Ballon Shire, which is St George, which is regional, very country, very different. And yes, there are a lot of girls who are interested in ag out there. I'm in the workforce development, economic development space, and I'm not sure if this is an appropriate question or for this panel, but my thoughts are I work very closely with the industry liaison and guidance officers with the high schools, and I guess looking at pathways and the job service providers as well, where to next, some of the universities. It's probably two-pronged for me. there are a range of jobs, I'm guessing, low skill to high skill in any industry. So it's probably one, for the students and kids out in the regions who are studying, one, how do they get experience? Because we want them to stay in the region and boost the region. And two, I think one of the speakers earlier, might have been Tracy, shared that yes, a lot of these 100,000 jobs might be in the regions, but it will depend on construction and infrastructure. So if that doesn't happen, what's the pathway? I guess I'm not sure if that's the question for this panel, but they're my two concerns. How do they get experience, and what's the pathway if there's no infrastructure being developed in that particular region, if we want to retain people and make that region flourish and thrive?
So I'm born and bred in Chinchilla. I studied fully externally through USQ. The first time I came here was for the graduation, and this is the second time. I really struggled with getting experience myself. Unfortunately, when I graduated, there was no jobs. I couldn't get placement. I couldn't get anything. There was just a real lull in the industry. It's completely the opposite now. There was a long time where I thought, why did I go to university? This is terrible, but I'm very glad I did now. I am seeing more and more placement as part of the university degree. I think that's really important. I had a placement student just recently who came and spent a day with me. When they're not in your area, it's hard. Hopefully there's another area they can go to. But as an employer as well, it can be tricky to take on work experience and placement students, the legalities, the needing to pay them a full wage. And I think there's opportunity there in employment law to be able to allow more of those opportunities.
It's such an important question, and it's an issue that sort of keeps some members of the CEC up at night thinking about how do we solve this one. And I know we've run over time, and I feel like we could keep on talking, but we probably do need to wrap up. But one of the things I wanted to say about that work placement is we have identified that at the CEC as an issue that we want to help the industry address. Particularly, for us around some of the safety, requirements. So we can see and we know that that's an area of work that we can do to be helping the industry. And on that point of pathways, and does anyone have a final comment to make before we close?
I've been that regional kid who didn't have much industry around him. I think as a group it's hard to address, but if you are sitting down with an individual who really wants to get into an industry that's not in his local or her local area, maybe just make them aware that home's not going anywhere. I've been away from home, I've moved, I've experienced life in Sydney, Adelaide, everywhere. And I've been able to mature, get as many skill sets as I can, and then bring them home. I'm home now, and home has never gone anywhere. It's always there. So maybe if the individual is open to going out and experiencing that, you never know what's going to happen. Like the solar farms, wind farms, they could be built anywhere. There's wind farms I never would have thought would be wind farms. So if they've gone out and experienced and gained that skill set, I just would be reminding them, like, just because you move away from home, you don't always have to be away from home. So that's probably the best way I'd sum it up.
I love that idea of home doesn't go away. That's a really heartwarming and wonderful kind of note to end on. I think I can't thank you enough, Ryan, Nathan, Liesl, Dan, Lahiru, for taking some time out to talk to us all about the work that you do. And thank you very much for putting your hands up to be a Careers for Net Zero champion for change. Could you please all join me in thanking them all for today?